Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about INFJs and the phenomenon of merging with other people. It's interesting because this is a phenomenon that is sometimes discussed in relation to the Enneagram Type 9. We're not going to be talking about the perspective from the Enneagram Type 9 in this video. We'll be trying to focus on the INFJ and perhaps anti-dominance in general, but with more of a focus on INFJs, because well, it's a theme, it's a topic that was suggested to me a while ago, and it took me quite some time to wrap my head around it, because I always intuitively felt that there's something to be said, something fairly important to be said in relation to this topic, but it was difficult to know what to say about it in a way that felt real and convincing, okay? But hopefully, as I develop my point, it will become clearer also why it is a difficult topic to talk about. Now, you know that the INFJ personality is a personality constituted around alienation, right? Alienation from external reality, which is bridged via FE engagement and the indirect stimulation of the SE function of gathering information, keeping the link between the self and external reality, right? At the same time, the INFJ is always in some sense alienated, okay? Now that does not sound like merging, okay? It does not sound like merging, but what has to be understood is that when we're talking about the phenomenon of psychic merging, we're not talking about a merging of a personality with a world of objects. We're not even really talking about the merging of a personality with another person. We're talking about the merging of a personality with another personality, the merging of a psyche or mind with another psyche or mind. Now, the INFJ is alienated from external reality, but by this external reality, I do mean the worlds of things and people, the worlds of objects and persons. I am not really talking about the world of minds. And in fact, via the FE function of intersubjectivity, the access to the external world that the INFJ eventually achieves is done precisely through a primary engagement of other minds, other psyches. There's a psyche to psyche connection that then frees up the space for access to the wider range of external reality. And if you would like to understand this more, if you would like to develop a really strong sort of mastery of this notion, of all these rather complex concepts that I've been just touching on here, there's lots of videos I've recorded before that talk about this. But there's also this book, The Ecstatic Soul, a new look at the INFJ personality. Now, this book really explores all these phenomena in greater detail than any other book that you can find in the world, full stop. And it's helped a lot of people understand themselves better. So if you want a deeper understanding of what the INFJ mind is like, I recommend you check it out. Okay, the link is below, guys. Now, the fact that the INFJ encounters minds before they really encounter the rest of reality also suggests that there's always going to be a particular affinity, a high value charge ascribed by the INFJ to those other minds. And there is something else that we need to bring into the picture here, and this is something else that we need to bring, is that don't forget that the NI function, it is the function of alienation, but it is also the function of holism. It is the function of patterning, of absorption. It is the function in terms of whose world boundaries melt, where things flow into each other, where vagueness of limits predominates. So it's the world of dreams, of condensation, of fantasy PH, but then it's also the world of merger. Everything merges in the NI world. It doesn't merge completely, patterns remain, but it's no longer this like straight mathematical structured organization and separation and individuation between different contents. That's the way the mind tends to be described by philosophers. But it is not the INFJ mind, and it never will be the INFJ mind, okay? If you combine this nature of the NI world, of the INFJ mind, and the fact that alienation is dealt with by the INFJ through mind-to-mind intersubjectivity, now you can start to realize that the fact of actually merging with another psyche is something that is really pregnant for INFJs. It's something that is really there, right? Never more so than when they encounter another NI dominant whose own psychic cartography is holistic, is mergery, is boundary melting. In the face of this, most INFJs have defenses because they fear dissolving, they fear losing their sense of self, losing their identity, their sense of individuality, right? The defenses can be of different forms. I've talked about a number of these defenses before. When I talk about what I describe as the neurotic kind of defenses, I mean, those defenses are also ways of keeping the other minds at bay in order not to completely merge with them and lose one's sense of self, one's sense of individual self. So when you talk about isolation of affect, when you talk about repression, when you talk about intellectualization, rationalization, reaction formation, all the defenses that INFJs tend to use, with the exception of fantasy, because fantasy is not really a good defense against merging, we're talking about, at some level, the INFJ, not consciously, almost never consciously, defending against this possibility. And this is how you can also come to appreciate what a lot of analysts have said over the years, is that when we talk about the defenses, even when we talk about certain forms of neurotic anxiety, right? Anxiety, we tend to think is something bad. We should be rid of it. But first of all, anxiety is essential to survival, because anxiety is also a way of keeping us vigilant about dangers. It is too crushing anxiety that's pathological. Certainly not the absence. It's certainly not the fact that there is some anxiety. The complete absence of anxiety is also pathological. Someone who never felt any anxiety would probably have a pretty short lifespan. So keep that in mind. It's about a balance. Anxiety is also a way of keeping you grounded in your own individuality, and so when an INFJ realizes they feel a bit anxious about getting too close to another psyche, that's also the activation of a defense mechanism. And it is true that among us, in the community of INFJs, in the community of INTJs as well, who have relatively similar issues, you'll find different kinds of people. You'll find INFJs whose defenses are pretty mature and pretty solid. You'll find INFJs who have defenses, but these defenses are a little bit more primitive. They might be more about denial. Denial will be a strong one. They might be more about projection. That's another strong one. They might be more about avoidance, okay? Which is not, it's between primitive and neurotic, if you like. It's not completely immature, but avoidance is another way that an INFJ can protect themselves. And then you have INFJs that, due to the particular education they had, the way they were brought up, the way they grew up, maybe have not aggregated enough defenses not to feel a very difficult to manage level of anxiety coming from a feeling of being threatened. And so he might experience any kind of closeness with another person as something fundamentally threatening. Like if you like, the fear of dissolution in another person's subjectivity is not real. There is a fear of merging, and there's a fear of merging, but the merging is actually not there, right? The reason why the fear of merging exists is because the ego of this particular INFJ is not just fragile, but porous, okay? And INFJs, like other people with porous egos, tend to find it very, very difficult to get close to people. and they find it very difficult to get close to people because they fear being engulfed. It's not that engulfment or this kind of aggressive merging is going to take place. It's that there is not enough confidence in the capacity of their own ego to solidly maintain their own individuality. Okay? So it's actually a fear about the strength of their own ego that is at play, but it's experienced as a fear of merging. The extreme example of this particular kind of issue is with borderline personality disorders, but you certainly see it. We all have that to a degree or another in ourselves, at all levels of personality structure or organization. It's just that it's extremely obvious in the case of borderline people who just seem to constantly oscillate between like merging and fusion and rejection, sometimes aggressively, sometimes suddenly. But all of us have to contend with this fact, you know. There are holes in the self, right? We all have holes in the self. Some people have bigger holes than others. Okay, so let me know in the comments what you thought, guys. By the way, there's a sequel to the book I presented you earlier, and this book is called The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, which is actually all about how leading an authentically INFJ life is the key to happiness, purpose, value, and an overall rich life. The world can seem hostile, but this book tells you how you can just about manage and be happy in the world as an INFJ. Check the first link below. This is my latest book. And as usual, guys, don't forget that I have a Patreon page where you can support my work. I could not do it without you. This channel could not exist without you. So please consider supporting me. You know, you get access to some very bonus perks like a Discord server, bonus videos every 2 weeks where I go in even more depth than these videos or my books, other perks there. So please consider it. It helps me massively. And talk to you next time. Bye-bye.